welcome everyone. We have the FG-01. No, this is not a knockoff G1 Jetfire. This is a modern VF1 Veritech, whether you're Robotech or Macross aware jet that is packaged, painted, inspired to replicate the original G1 toy from back in 1985. It's kind of incredible to see this packaging, very daring on their part. Also, I'm sure not many of these have been produced, so maybe that's why they could possibly be under the radar. And this particular one, this is at the time of recording, this is June 2025. There was a release of this a year ago, and this is like the second run. So it took that long for them to produce a second run. There have been a couple variations of this, one that comes with the jet and the armor, and a version that comes with all that plus a flight stand. I believe this does not have the flight stand. I am personally not needing the flight stand. Probably going to have this posed in robot mode for the most part, but nevertheless, this is it. I thought this was like a knockoff of the God of Flame product, the Kit's Logic release that came out 4 or 5 years ago. From the bit of research I've done, I don't think it is. So we're going to do a lot of comparisons. This is almost going to be like a review on Jetfire itself, with this thing being the most recent iteration of somebody attempting to do a G1 Jetfire. So for packaging, this is straight up like laid out like the original toy. Even all the way with like this transformation sequence stuff on the top. This box is pretty beat up, by the way. If you buy one of these, maybe it won't be so beat up, but yeah, mine came very beat up. Photography on the side, very reminiscent to the Hasbro. Same graphics on that side. Here is the bottom. And here is the back. And I believe this is like the original toy, in that when the toy came out, they didn't have the year 2 artwork poster yet. So you get this recreation of the year 1 artwork. I say recreation, this is the artwork. And they even gave us a tech spec. So that's pretty cool. Now, I ordered this from Show Z. When this came, it was in a box, and yes, it was a box in a box. One thing to be aware of, there was a smaller rectangular box, almost like how the locker boxes look for like the G.I. Joe product. Inside it was all this stuff. Well, there are these clear parts that you can swap out for these other pieces. It also came with extra hands and posts for the flight stand. So be careful not to throw this out, because it, depending on which direction you pull this out from the shipping package, you may or may not, the extra accessories may be at the bottom. So when you go to reach in, maybe they're at the top, you see it right away. Once you pull this out, you think the box is empty because it's light, and this stuff is like super light. and you'll throw it away, and you'll be like, "Hey, I didn't get that." Actually, you did, and you threw it away. So just be mindful of that. So, um, and just to give some scale of the box, here is a Takara Prowl. So the box really is pretty substantial here. So that's enough about the box and packaging and all that stuff. Let's go ahead and get them out of the box. So in the box, you're going to have two trays. So this is going to be behind this. This comes with the standard VF-1 wing missiles and missile pods, and the gap filler for the sides, a translucent pilot, and a flight seat. Man, this thing comes with a lot of stuff. Um, from what I hear, this is supposed to be a knockoff of Arcadia. So maybe these accessories are from that release. And then you get this other tray. Now, G1, this was foam. But this is, straight up plastic tray. And you see everything else, and I mean, just I can't believe they've gone this far with the stuff. Yeah, and even has a G1 style booklet. So we'll take more of a look at that in a moment. So here we have the jet out of the package. Hold up. So here, we have the jet out of the package. It's a pretty substantial size. Here's Prowl next to him. So we'll get this in vehicle mode, robot mode later. But he's not small, but he's not all that large either, considering what this is. It's also a bit on the light side. It does not feel like a model kit. It feels maybe a little bit heavier than the God of Flame. I think it might be a little bit bigger too. It seems to be maybe a tad bit smaller than the 3.0. But it definitely does not have any die cast. If it's got metal, the only metal is probably the landing gear. The landing gear has a look to it like it is painted metal. The wheels turn on these. They're like kind of rubbery. Might be PVC. But yeah, this guy isn't really heavy. Um, the coloring though is pretty sharp. Like the paint apps, the details, um, very, 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 very nice. Going over some of the stuff that it came with. So underneath that booklet is a text bit card in there, decoder. That's kind of cool. Again, very Generation 1 style artwork here. Look at that. Ah! um, that's very cool. Masterpiece style bio card. This is cardboard, but there's like a shiny overlay to it. So it's not plastic, but it's not just raw cardboard either. There are Autobot stickers in here that you can put on the boosters. I didn't show this off too much, but in one of the clear booster pieces, there are silver Autobot stickers, so you got that. He does come with the signature gun, painted up to look like the G1 version, and you don't need an adapter. You can just pull the arm out slightly and get it to position in there. Something like that. Yeah. And we've got the booster armor. Okay. And you just slide that adapter in, and you got a peg hole and an outward peg. The side sticking up goes in there, and probably easier to put these on like this. Okay. The feel of the plastic is a little not great. um, it doesn't feel quite like a model kit, but it's not very thick, so I'm being extra careful plugging stuff in here because I don't want to break anything. There are also no instructions for the armor, so just be aware of that. Kind of feel like this needs to lift up. Okay, so there is a tab. So this piece on top and then the leg kind of slides. Basically, there's a tab here that slides into the leg, and it's kind of got a hook to it. I'm trying to. There we go. That was scary, but there's a there's a little hook. Come on, camera. There's a hook here. It goes into this slot, and this if you hear it, it's ratcheted. So you're kind of feeling like, oh, it's not going to give, but it does move. So you need to basically get the leg kind of like this, I believe. Um, this part tabs into here, and it's come a little loose. Here in the front. Does not want to tab back in, but you get the idea. So yeah, this side came out much easier for some reason. You need to drop the leg and then bend a little bit. This is probably closer to where it needs to be. This side is a little too much of a bend, I think. Yeah, something like that. Should be one click. And while we're here, let's go ahead and put the leg armor on. And again, you got the choice of these clear parts, or you can do the opaque parts. You'll notice that this does not have the UN Spacey stickers on it. It's just a bit more generic. They do come apart though. That's really nice. So you got like this inner detail. And this is going to be the front. So like when you look at this thicker part is the back, the thinner part is the front. You'll notice there's kind of like a little groove for these wings to stick out from. So that's how you're going to match up which side goes to which. And then these couple with a back piece, and then the back piece pegs in, same kind of peg system as this. These peg in here. And actually, you see this one on the bottom kind of has like a tooth pointing downward. You need to get that side in first, or something like that. And it's probably going to take a little work. But these screws will point to the outside because they get covered by this. So the side that's going to be facing out is going to be facing to the inside. So this is going to be a little tricky getting this guy in here. Yeah. Actually, that wasn't too bad. Yeah. Just making sure I got the orientation correct here. Okay. And then we should be able to just stick this on. All right, and that's pretty much it for the leg armor. Let's go ahead and do the other side. There's kind of two pops. I don't know if I showed that well, but one pop, two pops gets it all the way in there. Okay. And then this kind of tab, you're going to use this hole and this peg to kind of tab back, kind of lock it together. And that's how you know you got the positioning correct. And then while we're doing this, let's go ahead and get the armor. So side that's got the nub is going to be facing inward because it needs to be able to hold the gun. And figuring out like which side goes where. Basically the kind of gun looking things are going to point to the back. So that's how you're going to orientate which side is which. And you should just peg in. Basically, these little holes are fitting into these little nubs that stick out. It is kind of a tight fit, and the plastic does have to bend a little bit for this to go on. So just kind of be aware of that. And the tolerance is like really on point, so there's not a lot of wiggle room. It's best to try to angle it So you get kind of one side and then the other side kind of laid in. All right. So it should look like that. And let's try getting this back on again. And ultimately, there are tabs here on each side, and they need to go into the holes here. I can get it to, there we go. Should go there. So you're going to end up having to get this pretty far in for this to work. And there's going to be, the armor is going to try to get caught up here, and you just have to keep it above that swing joint, because you got to get this much further in than you think you do. All right, and I said you kind of need to keep this piece kind of push upward, but you actually kind of need it to go downward. I'm doing my best to try to illustrate what's happening here, but you're trying to get this thing to slide into this groove underneath. So there's these two pieces here. They don't go above. They do not go above. They go below. And there is a groove. I wish I could get this camera to show this better. There is a groove underneath this part that they slide into. So they're sliding into a slot here, up under here. So this little slot right here. So I got this so far pushed in, and it was still kind of sticking out a little bit. So I just want to show this off a little bit better. This is the groove on each side that piece needs to slide in, and you can't. It's these little tabs here. It's not going to work with them laying on top. They have to go into the slot. And if the tab, you'll notice that these have these little nubs, they're not going to work sitting on the outside. So it may take you a little work to get this to go in correctly, but and it helps getting the legs out of the way. I shouldn't have locked the legs in because you really need to see what you're doing here. But you are sliding this into these two grooves. And that's a lot better. But that's what you're trying to do there. And wow, this just fell off. Okay. Once this is done correctly, you'll notice that the tabs lined up to the slots on the top of the armor correctly. It is kind of scary dealing with these tabs. Once you get them locked in, they don't like to come out easily. So I'm gonna leave them loose just so we can get through this demonstration here. But that is the fully armored mode, and that looks really nice. Then you got all these accessories that you can attach. There is no way to attach them all. You know, this is one of those things where you need to pick a loadout, but you know, there are the holes on the wings, and there are tabs on the various missile sets. And you just peg in, and there you go. So you can just kind of think about what you want to do. You know, you got the missile pod, you got the 2 missile pod, 3 missile pod, and we do have this flight seat. I believe this goes in place of the head. This is meant to be the, you know, when they're entering and exiting the robot mode. I think this is meant for that, so we'll take a look at that in a moment. But just a reminder, you can load this guy out fully in flight mode. They do end up kind of going on in a certain orientation. This system kind of locks them into that orientation. This guy does not want to go on for some reason. Let's try this one. And basically, they kind of make it so that they are designed to force the missiles to point forward when the wings are fully out. So there's that. All right, let's get this guy into robot mode. I won't show the full transformation, but if I run across anything that is notable, I will point it out. One quick thing about the landing gear, you're going to need a spludger to get these doors open, or a knife or something. I wouldn't use a knife, but they're kind of engineered to have these little tabs here. I guess you're supposed to like push up on them, but if you've got like normal size fingers, this is just not going to work. So kind of be prepared. Definitely when pulling the landing gear out, you're likely going to need something to pry the doors open. So I almost forgot about the Jurwalk mode. I'm just going to leave the gun kind of loose in his hand for a moment. It does take a good bit to get it in there, but it's got the same kind of peg system that you use to mount it underneath in the jet mode. It looks really good. The legs position in the weird way that they're supposed to. Again, I don't know what company that this is supposed to be a KO from, but it works really well. The feet get into the correct position. It's great. One thing that you've already noticed, going through the video, some of the armor wants to just slide off a lot. It's not super loose. I am like trying to transform and move this thing with a camera in front of me, so I'm having to grab it from weird angles and do stuff. It doesn't seem like it's poorly engineered, and it could just be the fact that the way, the armor is designed to like come off and reveal itself might be like a little bit of a slight design problem. It also could be me not putting it back on correctly. Like this seems like it's on here better now. But just kind of be aware of that. I think a person like working with this in a normal way, I don't think this stuff is going to be falling off. The main pieces definitely are not falling off, but the pieces that are meant to be exposed, I seem to keep knocking them loose somehow. So just kind of be aware of that. And whatever product this is perfect transformation. So there's no separate like this piece isn't like detached and you have to parts form it into place. So that may help people with identifying what this is. Um, the interesting thing is the all-in-one transformation is not supposed to be show accurate. It is like per the original design, it's supposed to be some mechanism where this bar is released and then there's another bar that catches it and pulls it into place. But we want our things to transform without parts forming. So that's what's going on with this guy also. All right, and transforming this part, when you go to pull on this, it doesn't really budge and it's kind of scary. The instructions just are kind of like, do it, pull it out. It doesn't really give you any kind of finesse about what to do. But one thing I noticed is, or one thing I came up with is getting your thumb here and pulling it down does the trick. Like it came right on off. Um, this is basically what you want to happen here. So the reason why it does not want to move is because it is locking into a little piece, a little slot right there. And much like the stuff going on with the back with this peg, it just kind of feels like, man, if I flex too hard, I'm going to snap something off. So just kind of be careful of that. And then maybe one other thing. I think this is the only area that there is metal. So this bar here is metal. I don't think there's any other metal on this, which explains why this guy is so light. So just something else to kind of be aware of. The instructions also do not explain this, but the fillers, they have these little nubs on the bottom. They tab into these holes that are left behind from the bar that the legs peg into. So the side that has kind of like a cavity, you want that facing forward. And you can just see that it kind of sits into all of this a little bit better. So it should go like that. So here he is in robot mode. And the chest area is going to be one of your most problematic areas. Again, I did remove the blast shield so I could get him to look a little bit more Jetfire-like, because Jetfire, that particular toy, didn't have a blast shield gimmick. Another interesting thing, as I was trying to get the gun into the hand, the back plate popped off of the hand, so it should look like this. It doesn't really snap back on, so I'm guessing it's supposed to be glued on. And I'm going to have to re-glue that onto the hand. Now he does come with all these other extra pre-posed hands. And you can just slide off the peg. It's not a mushroom peg, it's just a straight peg. And with these hands being pre-posed, they are going to work a whole lot better as far as not getting, not having pieces fall off. Although I'm having a problem getting the gun in. I mean, there's clearly a slot for the gun, but it's too tight. So it may take some work. There we go. And we can plug that in. One thing about these hands, the pre-posed hands, is that they don't have any like real articulation. I mean, they do pivot, but they don't do anything else. So just kind of be aware of that. Again, you can swap out the solid pieces for these translucent pieces. I showed off the side filler, which can kind of be a pain. There is a top filler. That's this piece here. You can just kind of plug it in. So you can fill that hole there. With the blast shield gone, this does kind of get a little floppy. Not too floppy, but you just notice that there's a little bit of give. There's this whole extra piece where you can basically kind of feel like I'm doing something wrong here, but you basically can have this look, and this would normally be Ichio or Rick Hunter, depending on what continuity we're talking about. And that's normally how they pass down into the cockpit. So you can do that if you want. But this is not a VF1, this is Jetfire, so I'm not going to use that. It's still nice that it included it. So you got lots of options. The head is pretty nice. It is a translucent red plastic. The turrets do turn. The individual guns segments do not move on their own, but this does move. Just like all the Veritechs, you're gonna have like some wonky stuff with the legs because there's all these joints that facilitate the jerwalk mode, and you might discover, like when you go to pose him for the first time, that you can't really get a good solid pose. You're going to need to play with the position of the feet, and you need to, they will go wider than they need to. Just make sure they form a plane. If you go too far out, he's not going to be able to stand. There is no side to side action on the feet, so you don't really get a, ankle tilt, but again, they're engineered in a way. So like he's got kind of like a almost an A stance right now. They're engineered in a way where you don't really need that foot flexion to do a whole lot of stuff. Um, so he's going to be, very posable for most of your needs. I will say that the joint that the arm turns on, that is not a ratchet, that is friction, and it is squeaking loud like that. So kind of be careful. I don't know what else to say. You might want to, I don't know. I know some people will put like some type of lubricant in there to make the joint a little bit looser. I don't like doing stuff like that, but if you do, you might need it because again, they're really really tight, like unusually tight. But overall, it does the job. So get him stand up a little bit straighter because I'm going to start doing some comparisons. So I've had the God of War, God of Flame, yeah, God of Flame, God of War, God of Flame, and you know, this is nice. He's a little fiddly, and not to say that this guy isn't, but he's a lot more solid, and he's bigger, as you can see, quite a bit bigger. Uh, the kit's logic is also they're very big on the panel lining. This is just a different creature altogether. The reds are metallic. This guy's definitely built and tampoed to let you know that this is a Macross Robotech product. This guy, they've left all of the markings off of it to be generic. But as far as like the main points, you got the black markings in the correct places, the little white markings are in the correct place, the little round circles are in the correct places. So, this is a very faithful Macross product, minus the um, UN spacey symbols. So that's that. Here is a G1 Jetfire. This guy's a little bit bigger. If you've ever manipulated one of these, it's got some good articulation. It's mostly due to the transformation. This also was never meant to be a Transformer product. This is a Macross product. Toy Galaxy's got some really great videos on the history of Robotech and the history of Macross. You should read that. We could talk about that for hours and hours, but they've already got some really good info on that. So yeah, this is not quite the size of that guy. So you're kind of seeing some things here, smaller, medium, large. So there's that. Now, um, here is 3-0. And you'll notice 3-0 is just a teeny bit taller. Just a teeny bit taller. I mean, let me take that back. This guy is taller. Proportions are very different. And I'm not going to talk about the head. The head is, different head. This is like show version. This is kind of more movie version, although they did have these versions in the show. But like you look at where the shoulders line up at, he's hardly taller than this guy. This is quite a bit more substantial because the plastic is thicker. It's got more die cast. This is a sturdier figure than this. and this guy is the least sturdiest. This guy, he does have a little bit of metal in him, but he's got a fidgetiness like a model, like a model kit. All right, so I think if somebody, and I'm going to intentionally leave this off camera here like this. This is the Bandai. This is the Chogokin. If Bandai, just Bandai did something like Kit's Logic Dig and just said, I mean, they make all these weird color versions, for different things already. They're not all the stuff they do is like show colors. If they could give this guy these colors, I think this would be the ultimate Jetfire. Now, that said, this guy is tall. So if you wanted to make him a masterpiece Jetfire, you could. I think this is probably a better scale. And, masterpiece Jetfire is just gigantic. But I think for what, we got to kind of keep in mind this guy, this version of Transformers Jetfire only exists in the toy commercials. He doesn't, he didn't appear that way in the comic, in the cartoon, and really any other continuity. So I think this is a nice placeholder. I do like this better than the Kit's Logic, but if somebody used this mold and gave it these colors, this would be the perfect Jetfire, in my opinion. So maybe one day we'll get that. I don't think anybody could ever say never to something like that, but this is going to be our best choice for now. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you haven't done so, please like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And please tune into more videos coming up. Thank you.